Hi everyone, this is Yanis Makula sharing a new video tutorial for Alt New. Today I'll be doing lots of heat embossing to create one simple but stunning card using a few stamp sets from Alt New. I've already picked out the supplies that I want to use and laid them onto a piece of white paper which I had previously pre-stamped using a large 6x6 wood palette stamp from Alt New. I've also selected one of the gorgeous vintage trims in gold. It looks absolutely stunning and is so beautiful in real life. I also have a few more trims here to show you. These are quite expensive but are simply divine. If you haven't yet checked them out, be sure to do so. These can be used to add that little wow element to your card, and I've actually used them on quite a few cards already. I'll link to those projects in my video description so that you can check them out if you like. Next, I have a set called Striped Flowers. I've selected several floral images from here and placed them onto my frame, creating a cluster. I'm hoping to heat emboss these in gold. Lastly, I have a set of sentiments called Label Love. These look like fun little printed sentiments, and what I really like about these is that one sentiment is printed onto one block. So for example, you have that Just For You, and this is one stamp. It's not just three separate images, but one, which is a really nice thing. I'm going to start working on my card by heat embossing a wood palette pattern onto white cardstock. I'm using my anti-static powder pouch and prepping the paper to make sure my embossing ends up looking nice and clean. The wood grain stamp that I will be using to stamp the pattern is actually a large 6x6 one, which can be used either horizontally or vertically. If you're making a slightly smaller card, you can also use it diagonally if you want to have a diagonal wood grain pattern. Now, since this is such a large stamp, I'm not even going to take it off the backing sheet from the stamp set. I'm going to keep it on there, ink it up, and place my paper on top. I don't have a clear block large enough to fit this stamp, and I'm not even sure that there are clear blocks that are this big. And even if there are, I think it would be quite difficult to hold one in my hand, so I find keeping this stamp on my work surface and placing paper on top to be a better solution. So next I'm going to place my paper on top of the stamp and press down firmly with my fingers. I also like to use the Clear Snap brayer to apply even pressure over the paper and make sure I transfer my ink evenly. You can achieve the same results by simply pressing with your fingers, but I simply find using a brayer a bit faster and a little easier for me. Next I'm going to add gold embossing powder from Hero Arts and simply heat set it using my heat tool. You can see the gorgeous result here. You can also heat emboss this in gold embossing powder onto dark brown cardstock. I bet that is going to look stunning, and maybe even add a little bit of ink on top, or maybe simply stamp this pattern using gold ink. There are lots and lots of options and lots of ways you can use this stamp set. Now I want to create some sort of a focal point for my card using this gold frame. I knew I wanted to have it in the center, but I decided to add a layer of vellum to screen the heat embossing there. I didn't want it to be visible or as visible, so I grabbed a piece of vellum and adhered it onto the back of my frame. You can also use a piece of white cardstock or maybe colored cardstock, or you can even turn this frame into an elegant gold shaker element. Now, since my vellum piece was rather tiny and I didn't have enough room to add adhesive to, I adhered it onto my frame with the help of foam adhesive squares. I placed those on the back of the gold frame to pop it up above my background and also to use them to make sure my vellum piece would stay in place. I simply overlapped them a bit and adhered partly to the frame and partly to the vellum. As soon as I added my main central element to my card, I started thinking about the other colors that I wanted to use for this project. I had only thought about the layout or the position of the elements, and I haven't at that point had yet decided on the colors. I often struggle when I need to pick out colors for my cards, and I've made a little book of printed color palettes for myself. Basically, I looked up color palettes on Pinterest, and you can find tons, literally tons of those there. Saved a couple that I really liked and printed them in groups of 4 onto photo paper on my home printer. Then trimmed those and ended up having a collection of various color palettes for my crafting. I often use those when I'm stamping, and I find them to be very helpful and time-saving. So after I flipped through a few of those, I settled on a dark brown, which is going to be gold in my case, light green, which is going to be white, and also red, green, and yellow. You'll see that I didn't use the exact same colors as I had selected on my sample here, but I did use very similar colors. So I grabbed a sheet of green, a sheet of red, and a sheet of yellow cardstock from my stash. Once again, prepped those for heat embossing and embossed the flowers and leaves from the striped flowers set using gold embossing powder. Next, I used scissors and carefully cut every element out, leaving a small border around the embossed images. It took me about 5 minutes or so to cut these out, and I had really liked the way that they turned out. Now, this striped flower set is actually a perfect one for a little geometric coloring. Since there are those fun stripes that divide the leaves and the flowers, you can color each section using a different shade of ink for some really fun and unexpected look. I've also shaped a few of the leaves using my fingers as I wanted these to be a bit dimensional. I heat embossed a Just For You sentiment onto a piece of white cardstock using gold embossing powder and cut it out with my scissors. Before I started adhering the heat embossed elements onto my card, I needed to flatten out that heat embossed background wood grain panel. I used Jennifer Maguire's trick and adhered a craft foam panel to the back of my heat embossed panel, and then adhered this onto an A2 top folding card base. The craft foam not only added dimension to this project, but also helped to flatten the heat embossed base panel. I really didn't think that it would work, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that it did. Next, I started adding my heat embossed flowers. I used multi-matte medium adhesive from Ranger and adhered those down onto vellum and also onto the gold frame. I also used foam adhesive of various thicknesses to adhere the flowers to create some more dimension for this project. Lastly, I added my heat embossed sentiment. I also adhered it using glue and then a few gold sequins to finish this project. Here's one final look at my card using the striped florals and the wood palette stamp sets from Alt New. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below or in the blog post. If you like this video and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.